Hare Krishna, everybody. This is Krishna Dasa. Welcome again. In today's session, we're going to cover Shlokas 3.20 to 3.28. Before we begin, let me say the prayer to Guru and God. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalake Chakshuram Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, do you all have your Bhagavad Gita open? Please point it to 3.20 and then I'll start playing the Shlokas. Ankit ji, welcome back.
Thanks, Guruji.
Okay, I'll start playing the Shlokas. Okay.
कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादयः लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठस्तत्तदेवेतरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणम् कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यम् त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानवाप्तमवाप्तव्यम् वर्त एव च कर्मणि यदि ह्यहम् न वर्तेयम् जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः उत्सीदेयुरिमे लोका न कुर्याम् कर्म चेदहम् सङ्करस्य च कर्ता स्यामुपहन्यामिमाः प्रजाः सक्ताः कर्मण्य विद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद् विद्वांस तथा सक्तश्चिकीर्षुर्लोकसङ्ग्रहम् न बुद्धिभेदम् जनयेदज्ञानाम् कर्मसङ्गिनाम् जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन् प्रकृतेः क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहङ्कारविमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्मविभागयोः गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वा न सज्जते.
Hare Krishna. I think today Amiti ji is going to read the translations.
Yes, Guruji.
Okay,
I'll
go ahead.
start.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, verses 3.20 and 3.21. Indeed, through action alone, Janaka and others attained perfection. You should also perform your duties considering only the welfare of the world. That way you can set an example for others to follow. Whatever the great and sanity people do, that becomes the standard that the world follows. 3.22. O Partha, there is no duty for me to do in the three worlds. There is nothing not acquired to be acquired, yet I engage in rightful action. 3.23. If I did not engage in rightful actions without being lazy, O Partha, humans would follow my path in all respects. 3.24. If I cease to perform prescribed actions, all these worlds would perish. I would be responsible for the chaos that would prevail and would thereby destroy the peace of the human race. 3.25. O Bharata, Arjuna, as the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to the results, the wise should perform their duties without attachment, wishing for the welfare of the world. 3.26. The wise should not incite confusion within the minds of those less knowledgeable who are attached to the outcomes of their actions by suggesting that they cease to do their duties. Instead, by executing their responsibilities in a discerning way, the wise should encourage those less knowledgeable to fulfill their designated duties as well. 3.27. Actions in all respects are driven by the three modes of nature, but the soul, deluded by ego, thinks I am the doer. 3.28. O mighty armed Arjuna, the knower of truth understands that the soul is distinct from gunas and karmas, and those who know that the gunas in the shape of the senses move among the gunas in the shape of the objects of perception do not get attached. That's it.
Thank you so much, Amiti ji, for the wonderful reading. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, Guruji. Anytime.
So, in 3.20, Krishna gives the example of King Janaka. King Janaka is very famous personality in our scriptures. His example is given in many locations in the scriptures. Because he was a very great king who had enormous amount of wealth. He had all the pleasures that anybody would want, but he was not attached to any of them. He was a very great Vairagi. Now, I hope all of you know who is Vyasa, sage Vyasa, Vyasadeva. Everybody knows Vyasadeva. I'm just checking because Vyasadeva, if it was not Vyasadeva, we would not be studying Bhagavad Gita, right? He was also known as Ved Vyas, and he was the son of Lord Parashuram and Gandhavati. And if you don't know, Veda Vyas was also a half brother of Bhishma. So he's a very, very prominent personality. He's a very great sage himself. In spite of all that, he sent his own son Shuka to Janaka. He told Shuka, go to Janaka and learn about the key lessons of life. And Janaka in those days was a king. He was not a hermit. He was not a sannyasi. That was the power of Janaka. That he could be a king and still he could be a Vairagi. So there's a lot to learn from him. So Krishna is using such examples to tell Arjuna that he should also perform his duties and only keep the welfare of the world in his mind while he performs his duties. And Krishna says, such selfless action is essential for social harmony. It's a very, very practical advice he is giving Arjuna. Because Arjuna was in a position of leadership in those days. Everybody was looking up to Arjuna. And because we all called Arjuna as the greatest archer and it's a great personality. And so whatever he does, the rest of the humanity will follow. So if Arjuna chooses not to do his duties, then the humanity will follow that example. And they will keep saying, oh, Arjuna didn't do it, so why should I do? So Krishna says, if you don't perform your duties, it is not good for you, definitely. And you will also be responsible for the sin committed by millions of humans who follow your example. Such a very strong, and this applies to all of us. Some of us are brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers. So when we do something which is not ethical, moral, which is not aligned with dharma, it is not just us who gets impacted. There are people who are observing us. Knowingly or unknowingly, they are going to follow what we are doing. So directly or indirectly, we are responsible for the sins that they commit because of the examples that they followed from us. See, so very, very important to keep this in mind. See, this is the concept behind all advertisements, Like there will be Sachin Tendulkar and he will say, boost is the secret of my energy. And so it doesn't matter whether he really drinks Boost, or doesn't matter whether that Boost is what really helped him score a century, doesn't matter. All the youngsters are seeing, they are saying, oh, Sachin Tendulkar is saying Boost is good, so we should go drink Boost. That is the whole concept that has been utilized in modern times by all these advertising agencies. And this same concept Krishna has been teaching. Krishna taught Arjuna more than 5,000 years ago. He told Arjuna, just be careful what you are doing because everybody is going to just follow that. What you do is what is important. So again, let us all remember that you don't know who all is watching you. You don't know who all is trying to copy what you do. We don't know. If we are working somewhere, our colleagues are doing that. If you are in a leadership position, our employees are doing that. So, that is yet another incentive to always follow the teachings, stay aligned to Dharma. And the simplest thing in Karma Yoga is do your duties always. Never try to avoid doing your duties. I would like to refer to Dohas written by Tulsidas. You all know Tulsidas. And he's reflecting these teachings of Krishna very beautifully. I like the language that Tulsidas uses. Very sweet, very poetic language. So the first Doha says, जे जन रूखे विषय रस चिकने राम स्नेहम तुलसी ते प्रिय राम को कानन बसहिम की गेहम. This means those who have released their bond to sensory pleasures of the physical world and have drenched themselves in the divine elixir of love and devotion towards Lord Rama, they are truly cherished by the Lord. Their chosen lifestyle, whether they reside as ascetics in the solitude or whether they are engaging in worldly duties, doesn't matter. Such a beautiful doha. So, contrary to popular belief, it is not physical renunciation which brings us closer to God. So we believe, we all have somehow misunderstood that if we have to succeed on spiritual path and if we have to be special to God, then we have to wear a dhoti, or we have to be shirtless, we have to go to a mountain, we have to sit in a cave, we have to hold a begging bowl. Somehow this picture has come. And so Krishna has said that's not the fact. Tulsidas has said the same thing. Naradji has said the same thing. So all the great sages have said that that kind of physical renunciation is not what is important. There is nothing wrong in physical renunciation, but that has to come at the right time. It should not be an escapism that you have a lot of things you need to do, but you are just avoiding doing all of that and saying, oh, I'm going to run away to the mountain because I want to get close to God. God says you are not coming close to me that way. The second doha of Tulsidas is सोचिय गृही जो मोह बस करई कर्म पत त्याग सोचिय जति प्रपंच रत बिगत vivekam virag. Two kinds of individuals evoke feelings of empathy and sorrow. Firstly, the householders who, in their ignorance, have strayed from the virtuous path laid out in the scriptures. Secondly, the ascetics. Ascetics are also known as jati, who, despite renouncing worldly life, they still find themselves ensnared by the allure and pleasures of the material world. I hope this makes sense. I will share the notes. You can read it again. But these teachings make it very clear that we should never think of just giving up the duties and taking sannyas in order to make progress on the spiritual path. That is strongly discouraged. So Krishna is saying the right path is stay where you are, be where you are, do what you are supposed to do. And do it in such a way that you get close to me. And what is that such a way? Without attachment to the results. You do it because that's the right thing to do, and you do it because that is what is good for the society. That's what is good for humanity. Very, very beautiful teaching. Now, I just again repeated the word attachment. That word comes a lot, at least in the first few chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So I want to explain it in a slightly different perspective with a small story. There is a story of Ashtavakra Muni. It's a very great sage. His name is Ashtavakra because he had 8 deformities in his body. That is why his name was Ashtavakra Muni. But he was very enlightened. He was an enlightened soul, regardless of how his body was. So once he goes to the court of King Janaka, see again Janaka's name comes. Very, very prominent figure. As he enters the court, you know how the court used to be. We have seen in movies. The king is sitting somewhere on a throne, and then the ministers are lined on both sides. They are sitting on chairs. And there is a kind of a pathway, and you have to walk through that path to go near the king. So you have to pass through all this public before you go to the king, right? So when he is walking, going towards the king like that, all the ministers of the king who are sitting on both sides, they start making faces. They find it amusing. Some of them, they are just like closing their mouths and they're kind of teasing because they're all looking at his body, and they find it pretty funny. Some of them find it disgusting. Once he reaches the king, like right in front of king, Ashtavakra Muni looks at the king and says, "O king, you think you have learned scholars in the court, but all I see are cobblers." Cobbler means a person who stitches shoes and chappals. Janaka is very, very surprised and confused. So Janaka says, cobblers, of all the terms, you chose the word cobbler to describe my scholars? I mean, can you explain what you mean? Why are they cobblers? Then Ashtavakra Muni says, because Only a cobbler will judge a product based on the quality of the skin. Such a profound statement. Because these people who make shoes, they make it using leather, and they're always inspecting the quality of the leather, the skin. And according to them, only a good skin can make a good product. Now that hit King Janaka very hard. And then he said, okay, this is no ordinary person. He is a very wise person. So as soon as Janaka realized, because Janaka himself is a elevated soul, it just took him one example to grasp the complete power of this Muni. So Janaka says, O sage, I have been having a question in my mind which has been bothering me for a long time, and I have a feeling that you can answer that question for me. Can you help me? So Ashtavakra Muni says, yeah, go on. That is why I'm here. I know you have a question. What's the question? So Lord Janaka says, how can we get rid of attachment? All of you are Janakas. I'm also a Janaka. I think this question comes to us all the time. Everybody says no attachment, no attachment. How do you get rid of this attachment? Krishna says perform duty without attachment. But how? Smitaji, how? How to do that? Right? Now, Ashtavakra Muni looks at the king and he doesn't say anything. He just starts running. He runs outside the court. He runs towards the king's garden. And Janaka says, okay, he is a great saint. There must be some purpose behind that. So he also runs behind Ashtavakra Muni to see what is going on. Okay. So as soon as he reaches the garden, Ashtavakra Muni goes and hugs a big tree. There are many trees in the garden. Ashtavakra Muni picks one tree and he goes and hugs the tree very tightly. And then he starts screaming, leave me, leave me, leave me. Everybody is puzzled. What is going on? What is this Muni up to? Why is he hugging a tree? He is the one who hugged the tree. The tree didn't hug him. He hugged the tree and then he is screaming, leave me, leave me, leave me. But Janaka was a elevated soul, so he immediately understood the message. He got his answer. What is it that the Muni was trying to teach? See, we keep saying things like, this desire is not letting me go. Or we say, oh, this habit is not going away. Or we say, this addiction does not leave me. Whereas what is the truth? The truth is, we are the ones holding on to those attachments. It is not the attachments which are holding on to us. Just like it was a Muni who is holding the tree is not holding the Muni. Correct? So what is the point in standing and saying, leave me? He has to leave the tree. That's it. The tree will be away from him, right? So, how do you get rid of attachments? Just let go. We are holding on to the attachments very tightly. All you have to do is let go. The attachment will go away. Attachments are never holding on to us. That's a very great lesson for all of us to remember. ये आदत छूटता ही नहीं है. Very, very popular statement in Hindi. This habit does not leave me. Well, the habit is not holding on to you. You are holding on to the habit. Why don't you leave the habit? So I hope this makes sense. It's a very, very important lesson for all of us. And then Krishna comes back to leading by example, because he started 3.20 by giving an example. So Krishna had said that people who are enlightened, they are not required to follow the rules of yoga. You remember that. But now Shri Krishna is Bhagavan himself. He is the yogi of yogis, Mahayogi. But still he performs all his duties. Why? Because that is for the benefit of humanity. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, I don't have to do any duties. There are no duty as such for me in any part of the universe. There is nothing that I have to do. Yet I am here doing my duties. See, Bhagavan has everything. Bhagavan does not need anything. And yet Bhagavan is performing his duties. That is the example being set for Arjuna and the rest of humanity. Do your duty not because you need something, but because it is the right thing to do. And because it also helps set the right example for others to follow. Our words people don't follow. It's very hard to make people follow your words. Our actions, everybody will follow. So it's very, very important. And Krishna is saying, Arjuna, just like I told you that people are going to follow your example and you will be responsible for the sins of all those people. Imagine me. All of humanity is going to follow my example. If I set the wrong example, I will become responsible for all the sins of humanity. I cannot let that happen. See, in olden times, your duties were determined based on your varna. Varna means whether you are a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Shudra. And your ashrama. Ashrama meant what stage of life you were in. Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. Those are all ashramas. So that is why it used to be known as Varnashrama system. Varna and ashrama. But Krishna is beyond all varnas. So when he was in Vrindavan, he was acting like a Vaishya. And he was performing the duties like a Vaishya. So in Vrindavan, he was taking care of the cows. He was taking care of milking them, taking care of herding them. He was doing all that activities. At the age of 11, when he went to Mathura, he was performing the duties like a Kshatriya. Like he fought and he killed Kamsa. That was the duty of a Kshatriya. And he performed that because he was a Kshatriya when he was in Mathura. And then when he was a king, he did the duty like a king. He went and built Dwarka to protect the citizens. And although Krishna is the source of all Vedas, right at the beginning, Krishna had said that I am the one who gave all this knowledge to the sun god. And sun god gave it to Manu. Remember that whole discussion Krishna had. So Krishna is the source of all Vedas, but yet when Krishna was a brahmachari, he went to the gurukul and he performed his duties as a student. Krishna, Bhagavan himself, was bowing down to the guru with humility, addressing him as Guruji, addressing him very, very honorably, respectfully, serving the guru like any other student serves, and learning from Sandipani Muni. Why? That is the example he wants to set, that this is the right way for everybody to behave. And when Krishna was in Grihastha Ashrama, what he did? He performed his duties as a Grihastha. He married. In fact, Krishna married more than 16,000 women. Yes. And he was such a perfect husband because nowhere in the scriptures we can see any of those 16,000 plus women complaining about Krishna. Whereas look at us in modern day, like most of us men here, we have one wife and we don't do a good job. We can't manage one wife. And there Krishna has managed more than 16,000 wives. So he's such a perfect grihastha. Well, just to clear any doubts, Krishna had 8 primary wives and the remaining 16,000 plus wives, they were all women that he rescued from the demon Narakasura. So Narakasura had enslaved these women. And so Krishna had rescued them. But society, the way society is, they refused to accept these women into the society because they had spent time with the demon. And so to protect their honor and to make sure that they don't become destitute, Krishna said, okay, I will marry you. So you are under my protection. That was the reason why he went and proclaimed his marriage to all those 16,000 women. But primarily he had 8 wives. The point to be noted is he prescribed or he performed the prescribed duties at every varna and ashrama that he associated himself with. There was never a single point in his life where he was supposed to do something and he did not do. There is no instance in the scriptures where somebody caught Krishna lazing around, sleeping around, and somebody has to remind Krishna, Krishna, it is your job to go take care of the kingdom. Krishna, it's your job to take care of your wives. Nobody had to do that. He was always, why? Because Krishna had said, I am above all duties. He is doing that so that he has set an example that people can see and follow. So what happens if you don't perform your duties? Remember, where right in the beginning, Arjuna was trying to argue with Krishna, where Arjuna is telling Krishna, if I kill all these people, I will incur sin. And then Krishna tells him, it's the other way around. If you run away from the battlefield, if you don't perform your duties, as a Kshatriya, right now your job is a soldier, you are a soldier. Your job is to protect Dharma. And if you leave that and if you run away by giving all these excuses, that is when you are going to incur real sin. If you stand, fight, and somebody dies because of that, that won't be a sin because that is just your duty you are doing. So Krishna had reminded him. So as an example, Krishna says that if men do not perform their duty of protecting the women, then the women get exploited. It's very natural. And when women get exploited, it gives rise to unwanted children. And unwanted children, when they grow up without any values, ethics, morals. And what is the society going to become? What will happen in the society if the majority is unwanted children who are unhappy, unfulfilled, frustrated, angry? It's quickly going to lead to the destruction of the whole society. It all starts with the man not doing his duty of protecting his woman. So that is one of the examples Krishna is giving again. We can see that in modern societies, especially in societies where we have such examples of a lot of children who don't feel wanted, you can see that how there is degradation. Many of these societies, you will see kids don't even look up to their own parents. They don't take care of even their own parents. Taking care is a big deal. They don't even help their parents when they are in need. So this is all an outcome of such degeneration which Krishna had warned about. So the message is very clear. I will repeat. Not performing the duties does not impact just yourself. It also impacts people immediately close to you. It also impacts the society. And in a way, it impacts your entire surroundings. And because of that, you are going to incur a much bigger sin. So Krishna again reiterates that it is the ignorant people who perform their duties with attachment for the results. The wise will always perform duties without attachment for the welfare of the society. Why? Because whatever you have learned so far, if you internalize that, you can call yourself wise. And if you're wise, then you are going to practice what we learned. What we learned? We just learned that duty without attachment. So you know that is what is supposed to be done. So who are the people who are going to still do their duties with attachment? They are the people who don't have this knowledge. So they are the unwise people. So we have to keep in mind that we will always be surrounded by people who are still living in the materialistic plane and who are still not getting onto the spiritual path. We may find it even in our own homes, our relatives, our friends. We will find it very close to us. There are people who are still not ready for the spiritual path. They are very materialistic. Krishna is giving an advice here. Krishna is saying that just because I told that the wise will behave like this, the unwise will behave like that, don't try to, it's not your job to try and force everybody to become wise. So Krishna is saying, never try to dictate a new way of life to people. What is Krishna's advice? Very beautiful advice. Krishna says, if you have understood what I have taught so far, at least in these verses, my teaching is, you just do the right thing and let people follow your example. So Krishna says, leading by example is the most effective way to teach people, especially the people who are not willing to get onto the spiritual path. Like if in our own house, if we have a younger relative who is just not getting onto the path of spirituality, there is no point telling them, wake up in the morning, do chanting, forcing them, giving them a mala in their hand. It's not going to work. You get up in the morning, you do your chanting, you be regular, you be consistent. You follow the spiritual principles, you do your duties without attachment. Those others will automatically follow you. That is the right way, and that is the only way to influence all these people who are not on the spiritual path. Very, very strong, profound teaching. Actions speak louder than words. There's a very beautiful example, practical example. I hope a lot of you know about the Beatles. They were one of the most popular music bands, and their lead was a person called George Harrison. Very, very famous, popular figure. So George Harrison once came to India and he met Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada is the founder of ISKCON. And George Harrison was totally bought into that whole concept. I would say that he had a lot of karmic entitlement. I'm very sure in the past birth also he was on the spiritual path. Because in this birth, the moment he came in touch with Krishna conscious people, the moment he came in touch with Prabhupada, he was sold on that whole idea. And he wanted to be a devotee. So he went and asked Prabhupada, he said, no, Prabhuji, I am totally bought into this. So what is your advice? Will you accept me as another sannyasi? I will shave my head. I'm ready. I shave my head. I will wear those clothes. I will spend time in your ashram. So Prabhupada then tells him, don't do that. There is a much more useful and impactful way you can help this cause. Harrison says, what is it? He says, you are a great musician. Your duty right now is to create good music. Continue to do your duty. And he says, utilize that to influence people. Why don't you now create some spiritual music? Music that will attract people towards spirituality. Such a great teacher Prabhupada was. Because Prabhupada says, whatever you do, great men like you, whatever you do, a lot of people will follow. So Prabhupada was very wise. He didn't want one George Harrison to be a sannyasi. He wanted millions of Harrison's fans to become Krishna devotees. See, what is the lesson contained is the same lesson, leading by example. And Prabhupada ji, he used it in real life. And George Harrison showed the impact. So I don't know if you know, but George Harrison's involvement influenced so many Westerners to turn towards Krishna consciousness. Millions, they were influenced. Such a impact he had by just utilizing his duty. He didn't have to do anything very different. Prabhupada didn't say, take a mala and go door to door. Prabhupada said, you are a musician, just continue your duty, just do it differently now. Without attachment, dedicated for God. See, and the impact was so much. Millions got impacted positively. So when we are talking about all of this, we're talking about duties, we're talking about detachment, we're talking about all of that. The takeaway is we have to do the duties. Duties means actions. Now Krishna is giving us one more perspective and warning. Krishna says, keep in mind that, yes, you are supposed to perform your actions, your duties, but keep in mind that all actions are caused by the three modes of material nature. What are the three modes of material nature? Anybody knows that? Anybody remembers? What are the three modes?
The Rajas, Sattva, and sorry. Go ahead,
Yes.
please.
Yes, go ahead. Yes. Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas.
And
Wonderful.
Tamas, yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting the order you chose. It is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
I know. Sorry, I meant that. Yeah.
No. I'm just amused. So there's no wrong answer. They are the three gunas for sure. And
At least I chose Rajas Sattva, not Rajas Tamas, so I'm okay. Getting there, Prabhuji.
no, we are all okay. We are all okay. So Krishna says that all actions are influenced by these three modes. There are many things we do unknowingly because of nature. For example, we digest our food. Are we actually responsible for that? I mean, consciously? No, that action is happening. It's not in our control. Right? We are extracting oxygen from air. Do you even know it is going on right now? Do you know there is a lot of activity going on in your lungs and in your bloodstream and all of that? No, we are not even aware of that. But it is happening. It's all action, right? So in other words, we are not even aware of so much going on. So why do we want to take credit for the things that we are aware of? It's a very, very deep thought. And Krishna is saying you have to understand that regardless of whether you are aware or unaware, actions, they are caused by gunas. The gunas are the primary force behind your actions. What does it mean? Why is he teaching us here? What are we supposed to take away from that? Krishna says, once you understand this, then you have to get away from this mode of doership. Do what you are supposed to do because that is the right thing to do. But don't become proud. I did this. I did that. Because you are not the doer really, in the true sense. This is a funny thing. Whenever somebody succeeds, any kind of success, they want to go write a book. How to be successful. Somehow it is like, they did everything. They are the doers. But when somebody fails, nobody writes a book that says how to fail. Because many times the thinking is when we fail, it is circumstances. It is luck. It is destiny. It is karma. It is circumstances. But when we succeed, it is hard work, dedication, determination, so many words we use. So Krishna says, have the humility to understand that you are not 100% responsible for the actions. The gunas are what are the drivers. So don't get into this mode of doership. Why is that lesson important? Because if you have that mindset of not getting into the mode of doership, it is easier to practice detachment. Once you realize that I am not the ultimate doer, then you will automatically get into a mindset of, I should not be saying because I did this, I deserve that. Because you didn't do it. It is the gunas who did it, mostly. So that is the lesson here. So there is a statement Krishna is making in 3.27. Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Muda means foolish. Vimuda means utterly foolish. So Krishna says, Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Only the utterly foolish who are under the influence of ahankar. Ahankar is basically false ego. They will think that they are responsible for all the actions. Any small success, you go and use a loudspeaker and you say, I did this. You say they are all vimudas, utterly foolish people under the influence of ahankara. So don't be like that, is Krishna's advice. Even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you will find a verse. E gunaha sanshikaha proktaha prakruteha purushasya cha esham atmani avasthanam nopalabhyet tatvati. It means the wise person who can discern the separate identities of the soul and nature and their combined actions, they can understand that it is nature in its various forms which comes into contact with the soul, causing the soul to enjoy the various conditions. So, we discussed way back in the second chapter, the unchanging aspect, the never changing aspect. That is the soul. And we spoke about the ever changing aspect, that is the Prakriti. And we said when these come together, when the never changing comes in contact with the ever changing, that is when the magic of life happens. The problem is the soul getting influenced by the ego is the problem. And the ego is ahankar. That is what makes you think like you think you are ekansh, you think you are ankit. That is a material identity, but you are not really ekansh. You are not really ankit. You are much greater than that. You are much more divine. But why you don't realize that, why you don't feel like that, is because of that wheel of ignorance and ego. That ego is what binds the soul to the body. So the ego is what makes the soul think that it is this material body. Once the ego is taken care of, the soul is able to identify with its true self. That is why pride and ego is such a big deal in spirituality. Like for example, when a guru accepts you as a student in olden days, the first lesson that they will teach you is humility. You can read this in many scriptures, Puranas, you can read it. There are Puranas, Upanishads, there are stories there. Doesn't matter how smart a student you are. When you start your relationship with the guru, first the guru will say, go sweep the floor, clean the vessels, cook for me. What they're trying to do is they're trying to first take care of the ego part, because that is what is the problem. Because you are actually divine, but as the ego keeps coming in the way, the pride keeps coming in the way. There are examples. For example, there was a great example we studied earlier. Buddha had a student, and that student, he had many students, but one of his students was his own cousin. And that cousin spent the most time with Buddha, years. He had the most personal time with Buddha. No other student got that much personal time with Buddha. But when Buddha was ready to take samadhi, when Buddha was ready to leave his body, this cousin of Buddha asked Buddha, he said, Buddha, I have a question. I'm unhappy about something. And Buddha said, go ahead. What is the cause of your unhappiness? What are you not happy about? He said, there are many students that you have who had only a fraction of your attention. And they have already reached nirvana. I've had so much time with you. You spent so much time with me, personal time. But why is it that I have not reached the stage yet? And Buddha smiles and says, that is because you always saw the cousin in me. You couldn't see the guru in me. What is the core teaching here? It is that ego. There was nothing else stopping. The intellect was there. The capability was there. But the humility and the ego is a problem. Krishna is saying the same thing here. Krishna says, when you are under the influence of that ego, as long as you are under the influence of the ego, you are a Vimudatma. And that is what is going to keep you under the delusion that you are the doer. So understand that and work towards that. You have heard the statement, right? We are all spiritual beings having a human experience. It's a very popular statement. And so what caused the spiritual beings to land up in the material world? That is a question we should answer. The cause is we had a desire to enjoy sensory pleasures, and that caused us to turn away from God. And what causes this need for sensory pleasures is the ego. Why? Because the ego thinks you are the body. And what the body understands, body doesn't understand spirituality. Body only understands pleasure. So the more you identify with the body, the more you will be driven towards pleasure rather than spirituality. I hope this all makes sense. So when we realize all of this, very simple. If you put all of this together, the teaching is actually simple. Just get a control of your ego. How do you get a control of your ego? Practice humility, amanitvam, adambitvam. These are all the virtues Krishna has gone on to mention. Like when you are with your parents, practice humility. When you are with your teacher, practice humility. Every time you find yourself in that mood of, I'm big or I'm something, tell yourself, that is a problem that's going to prevent you from progress, real progress. So once you do that, that is the first thing. Then once you are having control of the ego, direct that teaching to your duties. So tell yourself that whatever I'm doing because that is the right thing to do. That is my duty. I have to do it. And because now I'm not under the influence of ego, I know that I'm not the doer. So even if it gives me a lot of success, I'm going to stay humble because I'm going to give credit to a lot of unseen, unknown forces that have contributed to this. Very important. And then tell yourself that there is one more reason I should perform my duties this way. That reason is there are countless people who are going to follow my example, knowingly or unknowingly. They're going to follow my example. So I don't want to be a cause for all the sins that they commit. So I hope this all makes sense. And at the end, if you still have a doubt, how do I still am not able to work without attachment. How do I get rid of attachment? Remember Ashtavakra Muni, hugging the tree, and tell yourself, it is up to me. I just have to let go and the attachment will go away. So it's all very easy theoretically. The problem is practice. I know it's easier said than done, but all I request is one baby step at a time. Be consistent. As long as you are consistent, success will come. So that's my message. With that, I will stop talking. Thank you so much. I'm again grateful for your association and support, for listening and being such beautiful students. Hare Krishna. I'll open the floor. If you have any immediate questions or concerns, I can answer it. You can also use our WhatsApp group to ask your questions. Either everything made sense or nothing made sense. Usually that's how we define silence. Yeah, the usual suspect. Ekans, there's a movie called The Usual Suspects.
No, Prabhuji.
Yeah, whenever I see your hands, that movie comes to mind, Yes, Ekans, what's your
Even
question?
Prabhuji, you said taking baby steps moving forward. When you take baby steps, right? When instantly you can't see the results, but still there is always a question: Am I progressing? Am I doing this? Am I going on a right path? Am I doing the right thing? How to change that? Am I?
See, your actual question is not am I. Your question is why am I not seeing results? See, that's you started with, so that is exactly what we said not to do. So don't worry about results. What you need to ask yourself is, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Am I doing the right thing? That answer you will always have. But is it taking me in the right success? Is it giving me that is not none of your business. You have to have faith in the universe. You have to have faith in God that it will come. Whatever is supposed to come will come.
The basic question was, am I doing the right things? Because when you don't see the results, there is always a question: Am I doing something? Something is there that I'm not doing in a right way. Might be.
What is the result? That's what I'm saying. Because why do you have an expectation that only if I see that result, that means what I did is justified? I'm saying that mindset is what you have to get away from. There are some people who will see results in an hour. There are some people who will see a result in a lifetime. Some people take many lifetimes to see results. That's not in our control because we discussed you have Kriyamana Karma, Prarabdha Karma, Sanchita Karma. There are like millions of parameters in action here. So the results don't tell you whether you are on the right path. That is a wrong assessment. You just have to know you are on the right path. And if you definitely want some indication, this is the indication I tell my students of my Bhakti Sutra class is, what is your ultimate goal?
Reach God. Realize
Reach God. What is that state known as? You remember? That state is known as Satchidanand. That means once you reach God, you reach the state of Satchidananda, which means supreme bliss. So, is it logical to say that before I reach supreme bliss, if I'm halfway there, I will be half as blissful? If I'm 1/4 the way there, I'm 1/4. In other words, are you more blissful today than you were yesterday? If you are, then you are doing something right. But if you feel miserable inside, if you are not feeling peaceful, if you are not feeling happy, that means there is something that you have to do differently. That should be the only measure, I would say. Am I more blissful today than I was last week? Am I more peaceful, blissful? That should be the only indication, the true indication of success.
I got math.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
But thanks for asking these questions, Ekanshi. I appreciate that. Smitaji, you wanted to say something? You unmuted. Okay.
Me, the Smita.
Nothing. No, nothing. Go ahead, please.
I am also Smita and I want to ask something, or rather,
Okay. What a coincidence. Yeah.
No, maybe he meant you, but I seriously want to say something. Supposing if you come in contact with a learned person and his discourse, you're listening to his jnana, I was wondering if it is ahankara that would not let you choose him or not give him the pedestal and say that he's a Guruji, or it is just that you're reading a lot of things, so you don't know whether everything is Guru. I mean, I'm confused.
Okay. There is no formula here, Smitaji, because definitely we are living in a Kali-yuga where there are a lot of people who can mislead us.
May I speak in between and say something else as well?
Yes.
The example of Buddha and his cousin. Sometimes this also is holding back, You just look at the Buddha as a cousin. If I am his cousin and I'm looking at the Buddha, maybe the mind, the childhood programming or whatever, it just goes on thinking that yes, this is the cousin. though you may understand that he is really, really good, great, so is that something wrong?
Yeah.
How it is a natural progress, isn't it? How can you just think that, well, he is the great one? I mean, maybe I'm goofing it up, but that's what I feel.
No, that's there are no wrong questions. See, there is only, I'll try to explain it slightly differently. There is only one absolute truth. We all agree and acknowledge that. Only one absolute truth. All other truths are relative truths, or I would call them as situational truths. So you have a daughter. Well, let us assume that you are also the teacher in the school that your daughter attends. Now, when you are teaching in the classroom, would you appreciate if your daughter kept saying, "Mama, I have a question. Mama, I have a problem"? No, because the situational truth there is you are a teacher, she is a student. You come home, then you are a mother, she is a daughter. You being a mother is also the truth. You being the teacher is also the truth. Just like that, Buddha being his cousin is also the truth. But when Buddha is imparting spiritual knowledge, then he is a guru. That is a situational truth. And what prevents somebody from acknowledging that? If you tell your daughter, hey, in the classroom, I am a teacher, what will prevent your daughter from accepting it? That will be her ego. That is all Krishna is saying. He's saying it's your
I think
ego.
more,
Yeah.
sorry, more than accepting, I think it's taking for granted. Like, oh, I know this person so well. Like unconscious bias, taking them for granted. Is that something that can also happen? Like घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर. Like, okay, we keep seeing them and
Yeah.
something like that. Taking for granted. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, in other words, all of these are ego-based is what I'm saying, is because, array, this is just my buddy. That's an ego-based assessment. Ego is not always a negative thing. Ego is a very practical problem we all have. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, initially, Arjuna used to address Krishna only as a friend, Sakha. And if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, the beginning, as long as Arjuna kept calling Krishna and treating Krishna as a friend, Krishna had no problem being Arjuna's friend. In fact, Krishna himself has called Arjuna as his dear friend. There is no problem there. They are friends, definitely. But as long as Arjuna could only see a friend in Krishna, there was only a debate. There came a moment where Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, I surrender. Now I think I realize that it is beyond me. You are now the teacher. As a teacher, explain me. I am now surrendering to you. You are now my guru." That is when the actual Bhagavad Gita starts. So what I'm trying to tell you is there are many questions in your question. First of all, you need to be sure that whoever you are trying to accept is capable, is the right person. Because in today's Kali Yuga, a lot of people can mislead you also. They can. So that is also something Krishna has explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said, the external appearances are not what are important. So don't look for external dogmas, external appearances. The person doesn't have to look charming with long hair, with a tilak, and it's not important. Because that is what people run behind. The person can look very ordinary. Like Shirdi Sai Baba is a great example. Shirdi Sai Baba, there was no adambar. He used to look like a beggar. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of people couldn't accept him initially. But he was the real gem. There you have to use your intellect to first make that assessment whether you are running behind a sense-based something or whether you are following somebody based on the matter that they have. But once that decision is made, then get your ego under control. That is the whole lesson. Okay, I hope this makes sense, and we can continue the discussion even offline if you have further questions. But I will make sure that this lesson is clear. But somewhere, once we are on the path. The same holds to God. Why Guru is okay, but we have the same problem with God. I need evidence. So many people are like, God has to prove himself first. Then I will believe in God. And then we have to tell, the term is leap of faith is the term. And there is a reason why leap comes first. You have to first leap, then the net will appear. You can't say, first let me see the net, then I will leap. You see? So there are so many things involved here. But the simple lesson is, don't get into ego mode. Don't get into a sense of doership. Just be sure that you are doing what you are supposed to do. Do your duties without attachment and realize that it is helping not just you, but also helping everybody that you are attached to. So that is pretty much the summary of what we learned. I hope this all makes sense.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you everybody. Hare Krishna. Stay in touch. Wish you a beautiful day and week. And see you again in the next session. And I will need a volunteer for the next session for reading the Shlokas. You can volunteer now or you can volunteer on the WhatsApp group. You're welcome either ways. Okay then, see you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hmm.